Hello, my name's Jay, and I recently bought this. It's a Roland Aerophone AE30, and I'm starting to play it in the church worship band. But it's been quite a journey over the past 40 odd years, and this little series of videos is the story of that journey. For what it's worth, I'm not nearly important enough for any of the manufacturers to send me freebies or influence me with any way like that. All the kit I talk about I bought with my own money, and any opinions expressed are my own. Oh, and no AI has been used in the making of these videos. To begin then, I've played flute and saxophone since the early 1970s when I was a teenager, but in the 1980s I developed an interest in electronics, which of course led to electronic music, and that made me wonder if there could be such a thing as an electronic wind instrument, a synthesizer you blow through. You see, in those days the word synthesizer was pretty much synonymous with keyboard. Well, I wasted some time working out how to map saxophone fingerings onto note values using logic gates, but it just got too complicated, and anyway, I wouldn't have had the time or skill to turn that into a working instrument. What I didn't know at the time was that back in the 1970s in America, a guy called Bill Bernardi had invented an electronic wind instrument, which he called a lyricon. There was also a trumpet-style instrument called the EVI, or electronic valve instrument, developed around the same time by a guy called Niall Steiner. Well, apart from an occasional mention, the Lyricon and EVI never made it into the electronic music magazines or books that I could get hold of, and this was before the internet, let alone search engines. Nowadays you can Google them and get pictures like this, but back then every inquiry drew a blank, and magic flutes were just fantasy. Well, fast forward to 1987, and Yamaha brought out a wind controller. They already had a very successful keyboard synthesizer called the DX7, and they called their wind controller the WX7, and it was priced at £750. Now that did make it to the electronic music magazine, so we're in the real world now. But as a young computer programmer struggling to support a wife, a growing family and a mortgage, it might as well have cost $1 million. Oh, and it didn't actually make any sounds. You had to buy an extra box to plug into it, driven by signals from the WX7, using a brand new comms protocol, the Musical Instrument Digital Interface, or MIDI. Yamaha recommended their own rack mount unit to make the sounds. That was another £450 for a TX81Z, so that was £1,200 in 1980s prices. So that was all filed under If I Ever Get Rich. Still, at least it was on the same planet. Then one evening I watched a late-night music documentary following a British band on a trip to Japan. I can't remember the name or what the program was, but they'd been out shopping for gadgets, and there was a sequence when 3 of them were in the street mucking about on what looked like little electronic saxophones. Wow, that looked interesting. Oh, and cheap too. But what are those things called, and would they ever be available in the UK? You see, at that time, Japanese tech companies would bring out all sorts of weird stuff, try it out on the domestic market, and if it didn't sell, they'd just bury it. But yes, they did bring it out to the rest of the world. In 1989, Casio brought out the DH100 digital horn, and yes, it was that little electronic saxophone I'd seen on the television, and it was around £100. Now that was verging on the affordable. So I splashed out, and here it is. And yes, it looks like a toy saxophone. From the size of it, I think Casio were aiming at the schools market, maybe a high-tech version of the recorder. There's a cute little loudspeaker in the bell, and a mini jack output here, which is meant for headphones, but you can plug it into an amp if you want to. It is like anything there. It came with 6 woodwind sounds that are listed on the back, and you step through them by dabbing a button on the side. There's a transpose button here, which raises a semitone each time you press it over the instrument's 2-octave range. And there's a switch to turn breath control on and off. If it's off, the thing plays whether you press a key or not with it. Well, I can't see the point of that. On the plus side, it's got proper metal keys with the switches out of sight beneath them, so it feels almost like a proper wind instrument, like a clarinet or a flute to hold. This top lever engages portamento, so you can slide between notes if you want to. The mouthpiece is just a hole to blow through. There's no bite sensitivity, again just like a recorder. Oh, and down at the bottom there's a little hole there to let the condensation or spit drip out. It takes 5 AA batteries, which is a bit inconvenient. I mean, guys, honestly, why not 4 or 6? But you can use 1.2 volt rechargeables or plug in a mains adapter there if you don't mind another cable. Oh, but look, there's a proper 5-pin DIN MIDI socket on the side. It gets better. A couple of months after I got the DH100, I saw a used TX81Z in a music shop in London. Remember that Yamaha tone generator they sold along with the WX7? I bought that too. I can't remember how much it was, but it was much less than £450. Well, the DH100 came with 6 different sounds. The TX81Z has 128 presets, and it's completely programmable, with an extra 32 slots for user-created sounds. In the 1980s, microprocessors were on the rise, and old-style analog voltage control synthesizers were on the way out. The TX81Z is digital. It has digital tone generators called operators, and you get different tones by allowing the different operators to modulate one another. Frequency modulation, or FM synthesis, as Yamaha called it. There are all sorts of different parameters you can set to shape the sound, or parameters, as the guy in the shop kept calling them. There's a MIDI socket on the back, into which you connect the MIDI out socket of the DH100 and you're away. At least after you waited for it to boot up. It takes a few seconds, and it always says good morning, no matter what time of day it is. The TX81Z still has one particular sound that's in demand. It's called lately bass. The DH100 sounds like this on its own. If you plug it into the MIDI on your TX81Z and turn the volume right down, you get this. This is lately bass. Good fun, eh? Honestly, the DH100 was very good for the money, and I played it well into the 1990s in a band called Kingsfold, mostly using it as a controller for the TX81Z. It was rather uncomfortable to play, though, for anyone bigger than a Japanese school kid, and you did feel like a meerkat when you played it. I suppose it's retro now. Alas, Kingsfold came to an end. The last time any of us met together was in 2024 to sing at the funeral of one of our original members. Now there was no real use for the DH100. I was in a church worship band that was big enough for me to get my saxophone out again, so the DH100 has gathered dust until now. Casio stopped making these things decades ago, and nowadays they just do keyboards, but you can still find DH100s and their rarer, fancier variants on eBay or Reverb, and in America Matt Trom of Patchman Music refurbishes and trades them. As I was preparing this video, I switched it on and it made a horrible screeching sound. This is a common problem known as the banshee squeal, and there are several videos on YouTube demonstrating how to fix it. You take it to bits, easy enough, it's all Phillips screws, and replace one of the capacitors, C39. Once I'd done that, it played again in all its hissy 1980s naffness. So that was my first magic flute, the Casio DH100, ably augmented by a second-hand Yamaha TX81Z. In the next video we'll look at the Aodio Silphio.